Ludicrous prices aside, the worst, but also at the same time kind of one of the best features of modern race bikes is one thing, and that is integrated handlebars. Now inherently there's nothing wrong with integrated handlebars. They look great, they perform great, they're super aero, really stiff, often lighter weight than a traditional bar and stem, and have really neat sort of integrated Garmin mounts and the like. However, there's one real big problem with them, and that is that even when you are spending £10,000 on a road bike, often a lot of manufacturers will not let you select handlebars of the correct width for your body size. Take me for example, I'm 1.87 m, so often we're riding a large size bike. Now if you look through the majority of mainstream size large bikes in like a 58cm frame, they'll generally come with 42cm wide bars. In some cases they even come with 44s, which, you know, if you see the width of my shoulders, there is no way I'm going to be riding on a pair of 44cm bars. And now it'd be fine if the manufacturer, you know, when you're spending ludicrous money on a road bike, let you spec the bars you want. However, that is often not the case. And you're left having to fork out another probably near £1,000 after you paid a shop to install them of your own money in order to get some bars that fit you. And that's if you can even find them in stock. Trying to find narrow sort of 38cm bars in a reasonable stem length, like 120, maybe 130, is extremely difficult actually. And then the next thing is they charge you an absolute arm and a leg for these integrated bars. You know, we're talking £600–700 often, and in some cases even more. You know, the sky's the limit when it comes to prices on these. So let's say you did get an expensive carbon race bike with integrated bars that were completely inappropriate for your body size, and well, you need to get yourself a new set. So what options do you have? You look for the manufacturer's bars, or you look into the likes of some of these sort of finishing kit brands like Data and FSA and hope that the headset that they use is compatible with yours. Or you do what I did and look out to China. And I've been absolutely blown away by the choice out there. Most recently, on my Time Alpe build, I've been trying these EXS Aerover carbon one-piece handlebars. Full disclaimer, I did ask for a set, and perks of the trade, I guess, they did send me a set over for free to test out and make a video about. And if there's stuff I don't like, I'm not going to hold back. These bars, whilst not dirt cheap like a lot of the AliExpress stuff I check out, will only set you back $450, or that is about £340. So we're looking at about half the price of some of these major brands. And I genuinely think the quality is so good they could compete at the same price. So the first thing you worry about when you're buying a set of one-piece integrated handlebars is bike compatibility. And I've been really impressed in this department. EXS offer an absolute huge range of little adapter caps that fit pretty much all the major sort of big name brand bikes. But me running a Time, you know, a slightly lesser known brand that definitely doesn't have the user base that maybe Giant or Canyon or Pinarello have, I was a little bit more concerned that I'd get something that would work. So yeah, even before my YouTube channel got in the picture, I got in touch with EXS to discuss sort of sizing and adapter options, and straight away they told me for my bike exactly what top cap I'd need, and I just trusted them, hoping that it would turn up all right. And I'm pleased to say trusting them was the right option, as it fits perfectly, as you'll see later in the video. Next up is all the bike fit options they provide. So they do stem lengths anywhere from 90 to 140 millimeters in 10mm increments, and they do widths all the way from a super narrow 36 up to a 42cm wide in the classic 2cm increments. And the entire range of stem lengths is available in the entire range of widths, which means there are actually 32 different shapes and sizes of these bars you can buy. And looking on the website, it seemed like pretty much all of them are in stock, which can't be said for a lot of the big name brands that might only even be carrying sort of 5 or 6 different SKUs. So I'm super impressed for a small Chinese brand there. And I have to say, I'm glad I don't work in their inventory department. So alongside all the headset and mounting accessories in the box, they do provide some extra little goodies, including an out front mount with all the classic computer inserts. I've got mine set up for a Garmin and it's super rock solid. And it even has a little 3-prong mount underneath if you want to mount an action camera or a bike light to it. And I do like on this computer mount that the action cam portion is a lot closer to the bars than it is on a lot of these out front mounts, as when it's right at the end, it has a bit of a springboard effect often when you're running a full-size action camera like my Insta360 Ace Pro 2 or X5, and it just allows me to not have as much vibration in my video. finally, in the box, they do include an ultra-light carbon top cap. However, they do say to tighten it down first with a sort of standard aluminium one, and then just use that as a cosmetics cover. So enough talking specs then. What were they like to actually ride? Well, I've been running them on my Time for a few weeks now, and I've got a real good feel for them, doing some pretty intense sessions outdoors, including some all-out sprints and climbing efforts, and I have not been disappointed. But just before we get there, I have to mention the aesthetics, and I think these bars look phenomenal. I'm not always one who's a sucker for like the looks of my bike, but something about the shaping of them and the almost stealth bomber look just fits so good with the lines on my Time. You know, they're mostly rounded, but with a few boxy edges. They don't look out of place even on a fairly skinny climbing bike. You know, I'm not running a full-on aero bike like a Canyon Aero or a Scott Foil where these really chunky, boxy one-piece bars and stems suit. I was a little bit concerned that with my Time, you know, it might look a bit out of place, but no, it absolutely melts into the design, and you can see for yourself just how good it looks. Something about the top and the stem design with the little ridges on it, having that sort of stealth bomber shape, just fits really nicely with the Time's design actually. How, again, it's mostly smooth curves, but there are a few sharper, sort of more defined edges on the frame, and yeah, it just looks amazing. It's a mostly like matte black finish, but it has this really nice textured section on the tops that it's really comfortable actually for when you're a bit knackered and you're sat on the tops climbing. Now also, it does have the sort of groove for wrapping your bar tape up to, giving you a super clean finish on your bar tape when you wrap it sort of to end where the wide section of the bar starts. And yeah, no problem taping them. And the profiling of the drops is just sublime, I have to say. You know, enough depth, but also not too deep, and the reach on the hoods as well. There's enough of it. It's not like a super short reach bar, but it's also not making you feel like Superman at the same time. I've got it set up with Dura Ace shifters, and they're like transition from the tops into the shifter, super comfortable, and I'm someone who's quite sensitive to that. You know, I don't get on, especially when there's a bit of a dip into your shifter. I find it really uncomfortable, but no problems whatsoever with the EXS bars. So a big worry with these integrated one-piece cockpits is how difficult they are to install. And now, yes, I'm no novice to building bikes, but I didn't have any problems. However, I did use one of the little magnetic hose fishing kits that I got for a couple of quid off AliExpress. I wouldn't, however, recommend running integrated bars if you're using mechanical shifting. With Di2, absolutely no problem. You just got to run some nice sort of supple hydraulic hoses. But if you're running like mechanical shifting, all them really tight curves through the bars can wreck your shift quality. I've got integrated handlebars on my carbon gravel bike with the L2R9 mechanical group set. And yes, it works, and it works pretty well actually, but I had to put a load of care into making sure them cable runs were as smooth as possible. And yeah, it's just not ideal, and it's a right palaver. However, if it's just hydraulic hoses, you know, unless you are fully kinking them, they're a lot more forgiving to tight bends. But aside from that, all the headset spacers were really slick, and it all installed properly. One thing to add though, they did provide a little bearing adapter that is very clearly 3D printed, which I think is really cool. It means they can make such a variety of different shapes and sizes, but as you can see, I managed to snap it. However, my Time did come with an identical one of these made out of metal that I'm using just fine. But yeah, be careful with these parts because being 3D printed, they aren't like super strong like maybe an injection molding plastic would be. But yeah, just something to watch when you're installing them. All the other top caps and spacers fit super flush, and if you're competent enough to bleed hydraulic brakes and run a brake line through a frame, you're going to be perfectly competent to fit these bars. Obviously, you're going to have to do your homework and get in touch with the EXS if you need to work out the exact headset compatibility. But I think even if you're running external cables, they can just exit for a port in the bottom of the bars. So, you know, you can make it work on pretty much any bike. Next up is the weight. Now, I had these on the scales. Unfortunately, I forgot to take any B-roll of doing this, and they clocked in at just a hair over 300 grams. So that is pretty much lighter than most sort of two-piece setups you can get. If you take my ultralight Uno stems that I absolutely love, in a 120, they weigh in about 110 grams. And then you add onto it, you know, a nice lightweight carbon bar. They're usually about 200 grams. And my Aero Zip bars that I've been using before, you know, to get a similar sort of aero design, you're talking quite considerably over 200 grams for a standalone handlebar. And these are definitely way stiffer than that setup, I can tell you that for free. You know, there are some lighter, skinnier options on the market than these EXS bars, but I imagine to go much lighter, you will be making a compromise in terms of stiffness, especially when sprinting. And I guess that leads me on nicely to sort of the ride feel and the stiffness of the bars, because now, yes, big caveat, a lot of this probably does come from my amazing bike and amazing carbon spoke wheels, which are known for being super, super stiff to start with. These bars felt incredible to ride. We're talking like absolute super knife's edge precision when descending. Now, how much of that comes from the bars, how much of that comes from the wheels, the frame, you know, it's all a bit muddy. But the transition from my Ribble, which was already a really nice bike to ride, with, yeah, the zip bars I was talking about and the Uno stem, onto that bike has been phenomenal for me, and I've absolutely loved every minute of it. And yeah, it just gives me so much confidence when railing it down a descent, as you can see in some of the footage from when I've been out riding it over the last weekend. And then it comes to the hard efforts, and yeah, you really barely get any flex in them. When you're proper out the saddle, yanking on the bars, you really can feel they are fighting back and they're not giving an inch, which, you know, when you're going for your sort of maximum sprint efforts or doing a really tough, steep climb. I took it at Winnett's Pass at the weekend, and if you're from round near the Peak District, you'll know how hard that climb is, and it climbed beautifully. I was a little bit concerned as well, going to some of these sort of aero handlebars, that maybe they wouldn't be perfect for climbing, but no, absolutely that's not the case. Now, can I think of anything bad to say? Yeah, other than like, yeah, I guess the fragility at some of these adapters, which is to be, you know, expected with 3D printing. I guess the price is pretty high, and a lot of people might be quite nervous on spending that much money on a direct-to-consumer product from China. Now, whilst EXS seem to have pretty good brand reputation, and, you know, all my communications with them has been really pleasant and really easy to get things sorted, you know, at the end of the day, it's not a bricks and mortar bike shop in the UK that you can bang down the door of if something goes wrong and they start ignoring your emails. Don't take this as me saying, you know, oh, what if they disappear overnight? I can understand why people feel more comfortable spending more money on a product from a proper domestic shop. So, you know, $450, I really like it, and, you know, considering what it costs to get these big name bars and the fact that they offer features and specs that the big name brands don't. For example, the super extensive sizing options, and in my opinion, maybe envies aside, they are pretty much, I think, one of the best looking sets of integrated bars. But, you know, if you want them envies, you're talking 3-4 times the price, I think. They are ludicrously expensive. So would I go out and buy a set? Well, yeah, if I was building up another race bike, I think they'd be the bars I'd choose. I've looked at the Far Sports ones, and I've looked at a few of the other sort of Chinese brands. But yeah, these EXS ones, I can't really put it any other way than they have just a look to them. And maybe some people these days will call it an aura to them. There's just something about that design that just looks incredible. And yeah, they just complete the dream bike that is my Time I've been building up. And I can't wait to share even more about the specs of it and some of the other components I've been trying over the coming months. If you're interested in testing a pair for yourself, I'll leave a link to them in the description below. But yeah, I've absolutely loved using them, and they are definitely here to stay on my bike, even though I do have a few other sets of compatible one-piece bars on the shelf. Right, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it wasn't too much of me rambling at the camera. But I'm going to stop wasting your time now. Make sure if you're not already, you get yourself subscribed, hit the like button, and I'll see you all in the next one.